Dante Voss is a man built from shadows, ruthless, commanding, and heartless. The billionaire CEO is known for acquiring everything he desires and discarding it when bored. No one defies him. No one escapes him. Until Sarah Lennox. A struggling artist barely holding on to her dreams, Sarah's world shatters when her younger brother gets caught in the crosshairs of a deadly debt. Dante offers her a chilling contract. Be his possession for 1 year, obey every command. Submit in every way, or lose her brother forever. She agrees, but not to break. What Dante doesn't expect is her quiet fire, her refusal to bend, and the haunting vulnerability that slowly gets under his skin. She isn't like the others. She's not begging for his money or scared of his cruelty. She meets his darkness with her own kind of defiance. As the months unfold, obsession replaces dominance. Tenderness slips through cracks neither of them expected. But Sarah has secrets, and Dante has enemies. And in a world built on power and pain, one of them will fall. Chapter 1. The Price of Her Soul. The city didn't sleep, not when the devil walked its streets in a $1,000 suit and a blood-stained reputation. From the top floor of the obsidian glass skyscraper, Dante Voss stood still as a statue, staring down at the city he owned. Below him, the world pulsed with life, but up here, it was silent, cold, controlled, just like him. His phone buzzed once. Unknown. It's done. Shall come. She doesn't have a choice. He didn't smile. Dante never did. But there was a flicker in his eyes, something like anticipation or hunger. He turned, walking back into the shadows of his penthouse. The trap had been set. Sarah Lennox clutched the crumpled envelope in shaking hands, her stomach twisting as she stood outside the towering Voss International building. 1 year, the contract had said. In exchange, your brother walks free. She couldn't breathe, couldn't think. Her brother's bruised face haunted her mind. Beaten because he borrowed from the wrong people, the wrong man, Dante Voss, the billionaire everyone feared, cold-blooded, untouchable. Rumors swirled about his past, his connections, his cruelty. No one said no to Dante, especially not after he made an offer. And yet, Sarah wanted to run. Her fingers itched to tear the contract in half, but she stepped through the glass doors. Because love is stronger than fear, and her brother's life was worth her soul. The elevator ride was silent, too silent. She could hear her heartbeat louder than the soft hum of the floors ticking by. Floor 42, 55, 61. The doors slid open to a dark marble hallway lined with black and gold. At the end, a man. He didn't speak when she stepped out. Dante Voss was taller than she expected. Broader, colder. He wore all black, a tailored suit, shirt open just at the collar, like he ruled darkness itself. His face was carved from granite, sharp and unreadable, eyes a piercing inhuman gray. I'm not afraid of you, she lied, chin tilted high. His eyes dragged over her, slow and possessive, until she felt her skin crawl. Then he stepped closer. You will be, he murmured. She signed, with numb fingers and a hollow chest. Sarah scribbled her name beneath the contract that sold her into his hands for 12 months. Dante watched her the whole time, like a hunter watching prey trap itself. When the pen dropped, he walked behind her, close enough that his breath grazed her ear. You are mine now, he said softly, darkly. No one touches what belongs to me. No one saves you, and you do not leave until I say so. She turned slowly, her voice steady, despite her racing pulse. What do you get out of this? His eyes locked on hers, and for a moment, something wild sparked behind them. Obedience. The first night, he didn't touch her. Instead, he gave orders. You eat at 7. You sleep by 10. You don't leave the penthouse unless I take you. You speak when spoken to. Break any rule. He trailed off. And I'll break you. But Sarah didn't flinch. She met his gaze head-on. You can control my body, Voss, but you'll never have my mind. And for the first time, Dante Voss laughed, a low, cruel sound that echoed off the marble walls. You think I want your mind, little girl? He leaned down, whispering against her cheek. You have no idea what I want from you. That night, she lay on silk sheets in a bed too big and too cold. She felt like a lamb in the lion's den. and the lion had already licked its lips. But Sierra wasn't the meek little thing he thought she was. And Dante Voss had just made the worst mistake of his life. He thought she could be broken. Chapter 2. The Girl Who Didn't Bow. Sarah's second morning in the penthouse was colder than the first. Not because of the temperature, but because she was beginning to realize something. This wasn't a temporary nightmare. This was her reality now. The city still bustled below the towering glass windows, but it felt miles away. The silence of the space screamed louder than traffic, louder than thoughts. A quiet kind of imprisonment. Elegant, expensive, hollow. And she was living in it, like a rare painting hung in a room where no one ever sat. She wandered into the open living room, barefoot, wearing only the black silk robe Dante had laid out. He was already there, standing by the floor-to-ceiling windows in dark slacks and a white shirt, sleeves rolled to his elbows, veins visible beneath the skin. Coffee in one hand, control in the other. Sarah paused in the doorway, refusing to feel intimidated. "You're up early," he said without turning around. "I never slept," she answered flatly. He finally looked at her. "Why? Hard to sleep when you've sold yourself to the devil." A flicker of something crossed his eyes. Amusement, maybe, or interest. He set his cup down slowly, stepping toward her with all the deliberate power of a man who never chased anything. "I didn't buy your soul, Sarah, just your time." She crossed her arms. "Time is life, Voss, so yeah, you did." His lips twitched, just slightly. Good, let him be amused. That meant he hadn't figured out how to destroy her yet. He led her to breakfast. A long marble table was already set. Eggs, fruit, toast, all perfectly arranged like it had been prepared for royalty. Or a last meal. Sarah sat across from him, unmoved by the food. "You'll eat," he said, not even looking up. "I'm not hungry." "I don't care." She clenched her jaw. "You think just because you own the air I breathe, you get to own my hunger too?" He looked up at her then, calmly. "I think you're used to controlling your chaos, and I think you've never had to face someone who thrives in it." The way he said it, like he could see every crack beneath her calm. She stared back at him, then picked up her fork. Not because he told her to, but because she refused to be weak in front of him. Every bite felt like defiance. Later that day, the silence was broken by the arrival of 3 women, stylists, according to the house manager. They walked in without permission, carrying racks of designer clothing, cosmetics, heels. Sarah's chest tightened. "What is all this?" The oldest woman smiled politely. "Mr. Voss wants you properly dressed. He gave us your sizes." "I didn't give anyone my size." "Mr. Voss didn't need you to." Those words haunted her. She watched them work in silence, unpacking black lace, silk, expensive leather. Every piece screamed ownership, seduction, submission. She walked out, straight to Dante's office, where he sat behind a glass desk like some ancient god of power. "You sent them to dress me?" "I did." "Am I supposed to look like your trophy now?" "No," he said smoothly. "You're supposed to look like mine." She stood there, fuming. "You want to parade me like a toy, a possession." He stood up slowly, walking around the desk. His presence was overwhelming, dangerous. "You signed the contract, Sarah. You knew what this was. I didn't know you'd expect me to disappear in the process." He stepped even closer, his voice quiet and calm, the kind of calm that came before something violent. "I don't want you to disappear," he said. "I want you to burn." She stared, stunned. "What the hell is wrong with you?" He smiled, the edges of his mouth twisting cruelly. "You intrigue me. That's rare. But don't mistake my fascination for weakness. If you ever try to run, if you ever try to lie, it'll bury everything you love." Her skin went cold. "I'm not scared of you," she whispered. "Then you're a fool." That night, he didn't touch her. He didn't even come near her room. And yet, she could feel him. In the walls, in the air, in her bones. She stood on the balcony, wrapped in her robe, staring at the glowing city far below, wondering if this was what hell felt like. Gold, glass, and silence. A place where a man could buy your body. But what terrified her more was that he might find a way to touch her soul. And somehow, she knew he was trying. Chapter 3. A First Defiance. 3 days. That's how long it took for the cage to start closing in. Sarah Lennox wasn't built for silence. She wasn't built to live behind glass like a luxury pet, dressed in black silk and guarded by invisible chains. And yet, that's what she was. To the world outside, a mysterious new woman suddenly attached to the most powerful man in the city. To Dante Voss, just a possession. At least, that's what he kept telling himself. It started with a dress. He came home late, past midnight, and found her waiting in the living room. Not because she was eager to see him, but because she had something to say. And she didn't care how dangerous it was. She stood barefoot on the marble floor, wearing one of the dresses his stylists had picked, black, backless, and sinful. But over it, she wore one of his jackets, deliberate, daring. He paused, his steps quiet, eyes scanning her. That doesn't belong to you. She shrugged. Neither do I. Dante walked in slowly, his face unreadable. Is this rebellion? It's a reminder. She met his gaze without blinking. That you may have bought my time, but you don't own who I am. He stared at her for a long, tense moment. Most people would have crumbled, apologized, cried. Sarah stood taller. You're playing a dangerous game, he said softly, voice like silk over steel. Then raise the stakes. That made something flicker behind his eyes. Hunger, rage, fascination. You want to provoke me? No, she said calmly. I want you to realize I'm not some doll you dress up in parade. I have limits. You want my time? Fine, but I won't crawl, and I won't break. He stepped closer until they were breath to breath. You already broke, he whispered. The moment you signed that contract. She didn't flinch. The difference is, I'll rebuild myself when this is over. Can you say the same? That caught him off guard. Just for a second, his jaw tightened. And then, without warning, he took off the jacket she wore, slowly, possessively, dragging it down her arms like he was stripping her of defiance itself. But she didn't lower her eyes. And when he walked away without saying another word, she knew something had shifted. He hadn't punished her. He hadn't touched her. She'd won. For now. The next morning, the rules changed. A driver was waiting for her in the lobby, an appointment. Not explained. Not optional. She was taken to a private, upscale boutique. Inside, 2 attendants waited with polite smiles and a black folder. Mr. Voss wants you to choose today, one of them said. He wants to see who you are beneath the rebellion. Sarah raised a brow. So I get a choice now? They didn't answer. She opened the folder. Inside, no black dresses, no leather, no lace. Just options. Dresses in bold colors. Outfits with strength, elegance, identity. It was unexpected. It was also a message. I see you. I'm watching. I'm adjusting. The devil was learning her language. That made him more dangerous. That night, she wore crimson, a soft, silky gown with an open back and high slit, chosen not to tempt, but to declare, I will not disappear in your darkness. When Dante saw her, something in his expression changed. He didn't say a word as he walked up to her, eyes locked on hers. Then he leaned in slowly, not touching, not even brushing skin, and whispered, You look like a threat. She smiled. Good. He stepped back, a smirk playing on his lips. Let's see how long that fire lasts. They arrived at a charity event, the elite of the city swirling in diamonds and false smiles. Everyone turned when Dante Voss walked in. They stared when they saw Sarah on his arm. She expected judgment, whispers. They came, yes, but what she didn't expect was the way women looked at her. Envy, fear, as if they saw something they didn't understand, as if she wasn't his prisoner, but his equal. And that terrified them more. Across the room, Dante's rival approached. Nicholas Ray, another billionaire, slick and smiling. Dangerous in a different way. Less brutal, more charming. He took Sarah's hand before Dante could stop him. You must be the woman keeping our friend Voss up at night, Nicholas purred. Sarah smiled sweetly. If I am, I doubt he'd admit it. Dante's hand tensed at her lower back. Jealousy, possessiveness. She felt it like a storm building behind her. Nicholas turned to Dante, smirking. Careful, old friend, she might be the one to ruin you. And then he walked away. Silence hung between them. You enjoyed that, Dante said under his breath. I enjoyed watching you squirm, she whispered back. His voice dropped. You're playing with fire. She looked up at him. I'm not afraid of burns. When they got home, the tension followed. Sarah turned to go to her room, but he caught her wrist. Not rough, not gentle, just firm. She froze. He stepped in close, voice low. You're not here to test my control. Then why am I here, Dante? Their eyes met. War meeting war. And for the first time, he didn't have an answer. He released her, let her walk away, and stood there in the darkness, wondering when the girl he bought became the only thing he couldn't control. Os Chapter 4, Touch Me, I Dare You. Sarah had been in Dante Voss's world for 1 week. 7 days of luxury wrapped in chains. 7 nights of silence behind gold-plated doors. 7 mornings of pretending she wasn't afraid, not of him, but of how easily his presence seeped into her bones. She still hadn't touched him, and more dangerously, he hadn't touched her either. It was a game now, wordless, electric. She pushed. He stared. She rebelled. He waited. He watched her, with a quiet intensity that made her skin feel too tight, her breath too shallow. Dante Voss was a man of control, but every day she chipped away at it. One stubborn look, one sarcastic remark, one choice of address too bold or words too sharp. He didn't punish her, he watched. And every day, the look in his eyes grew darker, hungrier. On the 8th night, everything cracked. It started with a glass of wine. Sarah stood on the balcony in a satin robe, sipping red wine as the city glittered beneath her. Behind her, the sliding glass doors whispered open. She didn't turn. You're not usually this quiet, she said softly. Dante said nothing, just stepped out beside her, hands in his pockets. She glanced at him. Black shirt, no tie, sleeves rolled. His hair was slightly tousled, like he'd been pulling his hands through it. A rare imperfection. He looked more human tonight. That made him more dangerous. He took the wine glass from her hand without asking, sipped. Sarah narrowed her eyes. Is that your way of asserting dominance? He handed it back. No, that's my way of checking if you poisoned it. She almost laughed. You think I'm that desperate? I think you're unpredictable. And you don't like that? He turned to her, eyes burning in the dim light. I didn't say that. Silence, heavy, heated. Her robe slipped slightly off one shoulder, and he didn't look away. Didn't hide the way his eyes dropped, dragged slowly over skin, but he still didn't touch her. Coward. What do you want from me, Dante? She asked finally, voice low. Really? He stepped closer. Everything. You already have everything. Not from you. She turned fully, facing him now. Then why haven't you taken it? His jaw clenched. I thought you were a man who takes what he wants. I am. She leaned in slightly, enough that their mouths were just inches apart. Then what are you waiting for? A breath passed between them, thick with tension. And then, I don't take what isn't freely given, he murmured, voice low and hoarse. Her eyes widened slightly. For the first time, there was something real in his voice, a crack in the armor, and she hated how it made her heart stutter. I'm not afraid of you, she whispered. He tilted his head. You should be. Her fingers slid down the lapel of his shirt, light, barely a touch. Maybe I want to know what the devil tastes like. His breath hitched. His hand snapped up, not to hurt, but to catch her chin between his fingers. Not gentle, not rough, claiming. He pulled her closer, mouth brushing hers, but not kissing. Just barely there. You think you can touch me and not get burned? He asked. I don't mind scars. And then she kissed him. Not soft, not shy. It was war. Teeth, tongue, fire. He groaned against her mouth, low and deep, before grabbing her waist, yanking her flush against him. The glass of wine fell, shattered at their feet, but neither of them moved. His licks devoured her like he'd been starving. His hands gripped her like a man trying to remember control. But he was already losing it, already unraveling, and she knew it. He pinned her against the wall, mouth trailing down her throat, breath hot against her skin. She moaned. The sound ragged and real, and he paused, not in hesitation, but in torment. His hands slid beneath her robe, palms searing against her skin. But then, he pulled away, chest heaving, eyes wild. "No," he rasped. She blinked. "What?" "You want power over me," he said hoarsely. "You already have it." And with that, he stepped back, leaving her breathless and stunned. "Good night, Sarah." He disappeared into the shadows. She stood alone in the dark, trembling, not from fear, from the realization that the man who claimed to own her was the one on his knees, even if he didn't know it yet. Chapter 5. The Kiss of the Devil. The estate was quiet that morning, eerily so. No footsteps, no staff moving about, just silence wrapped in luxury. Amara moved through the marble hallway like a ghost, barefoot, still wearing the black silk robe Shed found at the edge of her bed when she woke up alone. It had been 3 days since the night he claimed her. 3 days of silence. No calls, no visits, no threats, no Luca. But his presence was everywhere. His scent on her sheets, his guards at every exit, the shadow of his name in every reflection she passed. She should have run. She almost did. But every time she reached for the doorknob, for the phone, for the window, something stopped her. No, not something. He stopped her. Even in his absence, his grip on her mind tightened. When she passed the study, the door creaked open. Amara hesitated, then entered. He was there, Luca Moretti, shirtless, wearing black slacks, a scotch in his hand at 9 a.m. His back was to her, tense, his broad shoulders tight with emotion. She should have walked away, but she stepped forward. "Luca." He didn't turn, but she saw the way his jaw clenched. "I thought you left," he said, voice low, emotionless. "You made sure I couldn't." He chuckled bitterly. "You could have tried harder. You wanted to stay." She swallowed. "Why haven't you spoken to me?" He turned then, and the look in his eyes nearly broke her. Not anger, not possession, but something close to pain. "Betrayal. You touched my scars," he said, voice hoarse. "I didn't mean to." "You touched them," he growled, stepping closer, towering over her. "You touched what no one is allowed to see. And then you looked at me like I was human." Amara's heart pounded. "Because you are. I'm not." His hand gripped her wrist. "I own people, Amara. I sell men to countries. I break enemies without touching them. You think someone like me deserves your pity?" "No," she whispered. "I think someone like you deserves healing." He slammed her against the bookshelf, not hard, but enough to shake the words out of her mouth. Her robe slipped open. His eyes didn't go to her body. They went to her mouth. Her eyes. "Don't try to fix me." "I'm not," she breathed, lifting her hand to touch his face. "But I won't let you drown either." Something shattered in him. His mouth was on hers in a brutal, desperate kiss, punishing and pleading. His hands weren't gentle, they were hungry. And yet, when she kissed him back, he stilled, trembled. She undid him, not with sex, not with submission, but with defiance, with mercy, with love. He pulled away slowly, forehead pressed to hers. "You're going to destroy me." Amara touched his chest, right where the scars began. "Then let me be the fire." Chapter 6. The mask begins to slip. The rain battered the penthouse windows as if nature itself was trying to interrupt what was unfolding inside. Elena stood at the far end of the vast living room, her arms folded tightly across her chest. She had changed out of the silks he forced on her and into her own clothes, simple jeans and a sweater that clung to her stubborn pride. Roman Vale stood on the opposite side, watching her like a wolf who couldn't decide whether to devour or admire his prey. His sharp features were unreadable, but there was a storm brewing in his eyes that matched the weather outside. "You really think you can just ignore me in my own home?" His voice was low, dangerous. She tilted her head unmoved. "You made your home my prison, Roman. I owe you nothing." Wrong words. In a flash, he was in front of her, gripping her chin, forcing her to look at him. "Don't mistake the leash I've given you for freedom." "I'm not your pet," she spat, eyes blazing. "No, you're something worse," he hissed, his breath brushing her cheek. "You're the only thing I can't control, and it's driving me insane." A thick silence filled the space between them. Elena expected him to threaten her again, maybe even lock her away in one of the rooms she hadn't yet explored. But instead, Roman stepped back. His chest rose and fell, and for the first time, she saw something unexpected in his expression, conflict. "You didn't touch the dinner I sent," he said quietly. I don't want your food. I don't want you starving under my roof. You think that's a victory? That you're making me suffer by not eating? I don't care if you suffer, she snapped, her voice cracking. I only want to feel like myself again. Roman moved to the fireplace, lit with orange flames. He poured himself a drink, his back to her. And who exactly are you when you're not trying to fight me? Elena, just Elena. A girl you bought because you thought you could fix your broken soul with someone else's body. He stiffened. I never asked to be fixed. No, she whispered. You asked to be obeyed, worshipped, controlled. But I'm not that girl. He turned around slowly. You think I don't know that by now? Their eyes locked again. But this time, something shifted. The air between them, once thick with threat, now simmered with something far more dangerous, curiosity. Roman took a slow step forward. You could have run when I left you alone yesterday. Why didn't you? Her throat tightened. I don't know. You do, he murmured, taking another step. You stayed because part of you wants to see how far this goes. Elena's voice was hoarse. I stayed because I need answers. He stopped just in front of her. And I'll give them to you, but only when you stop looking at me like a monster. Then stop acting like one, she whispered. For a moment, neither of them moved. Then, with deliberate slowness, Roman reached out and brushed a strand of damp hair from her face. His touch was almost reverent. You don't belong in my world, Elena. And yet, I keep dragging you deeper. I can find my own way out. Or you'll become something else entirely, he said darkly. The girl who defied me. He let her go, walked away. Elena stood frozen, heart thudding, eyes wide, not with fear, but something far more terrifying. He was changing, and so was she. Chapter 7. The Breaking Point. The penthouse was silent, too silent. Zarya stood in front of the massive windows, the city lights reflecting off her bare arms as she wrapped her robe tightly around her. Roman hadn't returned home for 3 nights. Not a call, not a word. And she hadn't gone looking for him. She was learning. Roman Vale was chaos wrapped in cashmere and cold stares. She had been swallowed into his world like a flame into a storm. But storms didn't last forever, and she was tired of burning. She turned when she heard the elevator chime. Her heart jumped. He was back. The doors slid open, and there he was, dressed in a black coat, shirt halfway unbuttoned, his hair tousled like he'd run his fingers through it in frustration. But what made her breath hitch wasn't the way he looked. It was the wild fury in his eyes. You didn't answer your phone, Roman snapped, walking in, his voice dangerously low. I didn't want to. She hadn't expected her voice to sound so steady. His steps halted. You didn't want to. Zarya lifted her chin. You disappear for 3 days and I'm supposed to sit here waiting like a pet? You don't own my silence, Roman. His jaw clenched. I own everything about you, Zarya. That was the deal. No, she said, stepping forward. The deal was survival. The deal was your terms, your game, but I am not part of your empire. I'm not for sale. He crossed the room in 2 strides and grabbed her wrist, not roughly, but firm, possessive. Then why are you still here? Because leaving doesn't fix what you broke. Her voice trembled now, but she didn't pull away. You want control, Roman? Here I am. But control doesn't equal love. And love? You don't even know what that is, do you? His eyes flickered, just for a moment. That cold, dead thing inside him, it twitched. I don't do love. I know, her voice cracked. But I do. And she yanked her arm from his grasp and stepped back, eyes burning. You can ruin me, Roman, you already have. But you can't keep pretending that I don't feel anything, that I'm just your possession. Because one day it'll walk away, and that will break you more than you ever broke me. Roman said nothing, his fists clenched at his sides, his breath shallow. The man who had threatened presidents, who had taken down billion-dollar companies without blinking, stood there now, completely unarmed, because she wasn't afraid of him anymore, and that terrified him more than anything. Zarya turned and walked away, her bare feet silent on the marble, and Roman Vale, ruthless, cold-hearted Roman, stood alone in the silence. For the first time in years, he didn't know what to do. Chapter 8. Boundaries Crossed. Zarya stared at the man across the room, heart pounding. Roman Vale, the billionaire who owned her world, stood like a dark force of nature. His sleeves were rolled to his elbows, the tattoos on his forearm visible for the first time. He looked dangerous, raw, hungry. "You defied me," he said quietly, but the quietness was deceptive. It pulsed with restrained rage. "You lied, Zarya." She swallowed hard, her voice barely a whisper. "I didn't lie. I protected what mattered." His eyes narrowed, sharp and furious. "You protected him? That low-life ex of yours? The same man who left bruises on your skin and nightmares in your sleep?" Zarya's fists clenched at her sides. "I didn't want you to kill him." Roman's laugh was dry, humorless. "You think this is about murder? It's about ownership, Zarya. Mine. You were mine the moment you signed that contract. Mine to protect. Mine to control. Mine to punish." "I'm not a thing," she snapped. "You can't keep treating me like one." In one swift movement, he closed the distance between them and slammed his hand against the wall beside her head. The sound echoed like a gunshot. His face was mere inches from hers. "I don't treat you like a thing. I treat you like something priceless. That's the difference between me and every man you've known." His voice dropped lower. "I don't hurt what's mine, but I will break the rules for it. For you." Her breath hitched. The air around them was electric, his nearness both a threat and a promise. Roman's hand traced her jawline, fingers rough and tender all at once. "You make me weak," he whispered, voice cracking, "and I hate it." Zarya's gaze softened. "You're not weak, Roman. You're human." Something inside him twisted at that. He looked away for a second, jaw tight, before catching her chin between his fingers and forcing her eyes back to his. "You're not leaving again." "I didn't try to leave." "But you would have," he growled. "And that's enough. You don't get to run from me, Zarya. Not when I've bled for you. Not when you've ruined me." Her chest tightened at the rawness in his words. The man in front of her was powerful, ruthless. But with her, he was unraveling. Then he kissed her. It wasn't soft or tentative. It was claiming. His mouth crashed into hers, taking what he believed was already his. Zarya didn't resist. She kissed him back with the same fire that had been building between them for weeks. When they broke apart, he rested his forehead against hers, his breath shaky. "You make me feel things I swore I buried years ago," he said. "That terrifies me more than any threat in this world." Zarya's fingers brushed his chest, over his racing heart. "Then don't run from it. Face it, with me." Roman pulled her into his arms and held her like she was the only thing keeping him alive. For the first time, it wasn't about ownership or contracts. It was something else entirely. It was about belonging. Chapter 9, Shackles of Silk. It was storming outside, not just in the sky, but within the walls of the penthouse, where silence had become a weapon. Alessandro hadn't spoken to Zarya in 3 days. Not since the gala. Not since she'd danced with another man, her old college friend, Chris, for a little too long, laughed a little too loudly, and disobeyed him in front of the entire elite crowd who feared and revered him. He hadn't raised his voice. He hadn't punished her. He'd simply turned cold. Too cold. Zarya now sat alone in the master bedroom, dressed in one of the many silk nightgowns he'd bought her. It clung to her skin, the crimson hue a mockery of the heat missing from their nights. Her toes curled against the marble floors as she walked to the tall windows, watching the city lights flicker beneath the storm clouds. She wasn't afraid of his wrath. She was afraid of his silence. Suddenly, the door creaked open, slowly, powerfully, as if even the hinges obeyed him. Alessandro stepped in. Dark suit, wet hair, eyes like lightning. "You're still awake," he said, voice low, unreadable. "I couldn't sleep." "Because of guilt? Or anticipation?" She turned, spine straightening. "Because you're punishing me with your silence." A flicker of something, danger, maybe desire, lit his expression. "You disrespected me." "I danced, Alessandro. I didn't commit treason." "You knew what it would do to me," he said, taking slow, deliberate steps toward her. "You wanted to test the leash." "No," she whispered. "I wanted to see if I still had any freedom left." A bitter smile curved his lips. "You don't." He reached her, brushing a strand of her hair behind her ear with such cruel tenderness it made her breath catch. "I own you, Zarya. Body, mind, soul. There's no freedom here, only what I allow." She swallowed, fighting the instinct to tremble. You can't love and cage someone in the same breath. His eyes darkened. Who said anything about love? That stung. But she didn't flinch. And yet you bought me a $20 million penthouse, flew my mother to Europe for treatment, and threatened my ex until he disappeared from the country. Because you belong to me, and no one hurts what's mine. You confuse possession for love. He stepped closer. And you confuse rebellion for bravery. Their faces were inches apart now, the tension like static between two storms. You want control, Alessandro, she murmured. But I won't break for you. His fingers curled around her jaw, not hard, but firmly. Then I'll bend you until you beg me to. Her breath hitched, not out of fear, out of fury, out of need. You hate that I don't obey you blindly. I hate that you make me feel. The truth, there it was. He let go of her and stepped back, pacing the room like a lion caged too long. His usually composed aura frayed at the edges, the storm in his chest finally brewing to the surface. I built empires without emotion, he said. I ruined men without blinking. But one look from you, one touch, and I unravel. Then maybe, she said softly, it's time you let yourself unravel. Alessandra stilled, turned, and then in two strides, he had her against the wall, mouth crashing against hers in a kiss that was all war and desperation. She responded with equal heat. She was tired of the cold, of the games. She kissed him like a woman reclaiming her own power, not a giving in, but meeting him in the fire. His hands gripped her waist, then her thighs, lifting her with practiced ease. She wrapped her legs around his hips as his mouth devoured hers. You want freedom? He growled against her lips. I'll give you the kind that ruins you. I'd rather burn with you than ever feel nothing again. He slammed his palm against the wall beside her head, holding her up with one arm while his other hand explored the curve of her spine. This wasn't gentle. This wasn't tender. It was two storms colliding. She gasped as his mouth found her neck, biting down hard enough to bruise. Everyone warned me about you, she panted. Said you were poison. He pulled back, gaze burning. They were wrong. She smiled breathless. You're the antidote I didn't know I needed. That seemed to snap something inside him. His grip tightened. He carried her to the bed, laying her down like something sacred he was about to desecrate. Not out of cruelty, but hunger. Raw, aching hunger. You challenge me, Zarya, he said, pulling off his shirt, revealing the muscles carved from years of pain, control, and sacrifice. You defy me, disarm me, undo me. Her fingers reached for his belt. Then let me destroy you properly. He hissed through his teeth, lowering his body over hers. Clothes fell like confessions. Touch became their only language. And when he entered her, it was a promise and a punishment. Slow, deep, unrelenting. He wasn't gentle, but he wasn't cruel either. He worshipped her with a vengeance, like a man afraid of losing control, but too far gone to stop himself. Zarya clutched his shoulders, nails digging in, drawing marks down his back like a signature. Say it, he rasped, thrusting harder. She cried out, gasping. Say it, Zarya. I'm yours, she moaned. He growled, kissing her hard. And yet, even in surrender, she wasn't broken. She had tamed the beast, not by chains, but by meeting his fire with her own. When the storm finally passed, inside and outside, the room fell silent again. But this time, the silence wasn't a weapon. It was peace. Alessandro lay beside her, one arm draped over her waist, pulling her into his chest. Sleep, he murmured. Tomorrow you'll defy me again. Maybe. And I'll ruin anyone who touches you. She smirked against his skin. Already ruined. Darling, he chuckled. And for once the billionaire who owned everything, power, fear, money, held something he couldn't buy. Her, a woman who defied him, and who, somehow, had become the only thing that could save him. Chapter 10. His darkness, her defiance. The silence inside the penthouse was heavy, punctuated only by the ticking of an antique clock that echoed through the expansive space. Valencia stood near the glass walls that overlooked the city, her silhouette framed by the faint golden glow of the night. Her heart thundered in her chest. She could feel him before she heard him, Dominic Kane, the billionaire who had bought her, broken her, yet somehow still hadn't owned her completely. You're quiet tonight, Dominic said from behind her, his voice like smooth whiskey laced with menace. Valencia didn't turn. Is that what you expect of me now? Silence? He was close now. too close. She could feel the heat of his presence. Her reflection in the glass showed his looming figure behind her, all power and stillness, like a predator studying his prey. "No," he said lowly. "I don't expect anything anymore. You've already defied every rule I put in place." "Because I'm not a thing to be controlled," she snapped, turning to face him. He studied her, the sharp angles of his face cast in shadow, his eyes unreadable. "But you signed the contract. You gave yourself to me." "I sold my freedom. I didn't sell my soul." A flash of something, pride, amusement, anger, passed through his eyes. "You don't get to draw that line now, Valencia. I just did." He stepped forward, and she stepped back until her spine hit the glass. The coolness of it bit into her skin, grounding her. He raised his hand, brushing a strand of hair from her face. Not gently, not roughly, just deliberately. "You think you're still fighting me," he murmured. "But you're fighting yourself." "No, Dominic, I'm fighting for myself." There it was again, that defiance. It should have enraged him. A man like Dominic Kane, who ruled boardrooms and dark alleys alike, wasn't used to being told no. But this woman, she didn't cower. She didn't beg. She burned. His voice dropped an octave. "You don't get to walk away from me." "I'm not walking away," she whispered. "I'm standing up." A quiet beat passed. Then he laughed, low, dark, bitter. "You think I'll let you stand against me? I don't need your permission anymore." His hand snapped out, gripping her jaw. Not enough to hurt, but enough to remind her who he was. "I built an empire on obedience, and I survived hell on rebellion." That stopped him. His eyes narrowed, searching hers. "What did he do to you?" he asked, voice suddenly not just dark, but dangerous. Valencia's lips trembled. She hadn't told him about the man before him, the one who broke her in different ways. Dominic thought he was the first to claim her body, but he wasn't the first to try to claim her soul. "You don't get to ask," she whispered. He released her slowly. She didn't run. Dominic turned his back to her, walking to the bar and pouring himself a drink. His hands were steady, his composure chilling, but something in his posture was different, stiff, tense. "You push me, Valencia," he said without turning, "and one day I won't be able to hold back." "You already don't," she said. "You hurt people when you can't control them." "I protect what's mine." She walked forward slowly. "Then stop seeing me as something you own." He faced her again, glass in hand. "You are mine." "No, I'm not. Not anymore." That broke something in him. He slammed the glass down, shards exploding like crystal rain. Valencia didn't flinch. Dominic's chest heaved. His jaw clenched. But his eyes, they betrayed him. He wasn't just angry. He was afraid. "You ruined me," he said softly, bitterly. "Do you know that?" She stepped closer, barefoot on the marble, cutting her heel slightly on a shard, but not stopping. "Then let me go." "No." She looked up into his eyes, unflinching. "Then let me love you, not own you." "Love you?" He flinched, like she'd slapped him. "Love," he repeated, almost mockingly. "You think love belongs in a world like mine?" She nodded. "Because if it doesn't, then what's left for you?" He said nothing. The seconds dragged between them, thick with unspoken truths. Then, unexpectedly, Dominic dropped to his knees before her. Valencia froze. "What are you doing?" she whispered. He looked up at her, the mighty, feared billionaire on his knees, his eyes raw, his voice low. "You defied me, Valencia, and somehow, you became the only thing I can't destroy." Her breath caught. He gripped her thighs, head against her stomach. "I don't know how to love," he admitted. "You don't have to know," she whispered. Her fingers slid into his hair. "Just try." He let out a shaky breath, and for the first time, Dominic Kane didn't feel like a god. He felt like a man, broken, but not alone. Chapter 11. A deal sealed with fire. The rain was relentless that night, slashing against the windows of the high-rise like nature itself was trying to claw its way into the billionaire's fortress. Inside, the room was dimly lit, the fireplace casting long shadows on the walls. The storm outside was nothing compared to the storm inside him. Dante Reyes stood at the edge of the room, his hands clenched. His black shirt soaked through at the collar from the rain he hadn't bothered to shake off. His jaw was rigid, his eyes fixed on the woman who had turned his kingdom upside down with a single choice, a refusal. Calla Monroe sat on the edge of the bed, barefoot, her legs curled under her. Her eyes never left his. There was fear in her gaze, yes, but something more dangerous, defiance, laced with a heartbreaking trace of hope. "You ran," Dante said finally, his voice low, barely more than a whisper, the kind of quiet that comes before a deadly strike. "I walked," Calla corrected him, lifting her chin. "There's a difference." Dante's lips curved into a cold smile. "And yet here you are, in my house, in my room, in my world. I didn't come back for you," she lied. His eyes narrowed. He moved toward her, slow, deliberate, the firelight dancing across his sharp cheekbones and cruel mouth. "You may not have come back for me, but you belong to me, and you know it." She swallowed but didn't move. "You don't own me. I do." His hand curled around her chin, tilting her face up. "You just haven't accepted it yet." Calla's pulse jumped beneath his touch. His scent, storm, leather, something darker, made her head spin. He was dangerous, possessive, and somehow, in the chaos of his world, he had made her feel more alive than anything else ever had. "I left because you scared me," she whispered. "Good." Dante's voice was dark silk, smooth and cutting. "You should be scanned. You should fear what I'm capable of, what I do to the things I claim." Calla's fingers dug into the blanket beneath her. "And if I refuse to be claimed?" His thumb brushed over her bottom lip, slowly. "Then I'll just have to make you beg for it." She trembled, but it wasn't from fear now. It was from anticipation. The pull between them was toxic, electric, and she hated how much her body craved the fire he brought. Dante let her go suddenly. Stepping back like touching her had cost him control. He turned to the liquor cabinet, poured himself a glass of bourbon with a shaking hand. "I wasn't always like this," he said, not looking at her. "There was a time I didn't need to control everything, until they took everything from me. My mother, my sister, my soul." Calla stood slowly. "Who are they?" "The people who smile with blood on their teeth," he replied, voice hard. "People who think love is weakness. People I now resemble far too much." She moved toward him cautiously, every step a rebellion against the instinct to run. "Then why are you trying to own me, Dante? Why not let me go?" He turned then, and the look in his eyes nearly brought her to her knees. "Because you're the only thing I haven't corrupted yet, the only thing I want to possess, without breaking." The silence stretched between them, heavy, fragile. Calla's voice was barely audible. "Then don't break me. Let me choose you." Something flickered across Dante's face. Pain, hope, disbelief. "I'm not a man women choose, Calla." She stepped into his space, brushing her fingers along his cheek. "Then let me be the first." His hands gripped her waist, firm but not punishing. "If you come back to me willingly, there's no turning back, no walking away next time." "I'm not asking for a way out," she breathed. He kissed her. It wasn't soft. It wasn't kind. It was possession, hunger, fire. It was the storm and the silence after it. He lifted her effortlessly, carrying her to the bed. She wrapped her arms around his neck, feeling the tension in his muscles, the restraint he was barely holding on to. "You're mine," he said against her throat, his voice hoarse with need. "Say it." "Only if you say it first," she whispered. He met her eyes, and for the first time, she saw him vulnerable. Not just a billionaire king of shadows. Not just the devil who had marked her. But a man. "I'm yours," Dante said. "God help me, I'm yours." And when their bodies met, it was not just lust. It was a war between need and redemption. A deal sealed not with signatures, but with scars and skin and soul. The kind of union that could either save them both or ruin them completely. Chapter 12. The penthouse was silent, almost too silent. Eden stood by the glass window, arms folded, watching the storm roll in over the city. Lightning fractured the sky, reflecting in her eyes like sparks of a rebellion she hadn't yet voiced. The rain began its descent, smearing the lights of the skyline in streaks across the pane. She hadn't spoken to him since last night. Lucien watched her from behind, his jaw clenched tight, fists buried deep in his pockets. She hadn't screamed. She hadn't cried. She just went still, like the calm before something devastating. You didn't run, he said finally, his voice low. No, she replied, her tone sharp, cutting. You made sure I had nowhere to run. The truth of it hit him harder than any bullet. Lucien Vale, the man who could control governments and silence witnesses, stood powerless in the face of her silence. He had built walls so high around her world that even she had stopped trying to escape them. I never wanted to trap you, he muttered. You bought me, Lucien. He flinched. You own my name, my body, my freedom. And you act surprised when I tell you I feel caged? I protected you. You controlled me. The tension cracked like the thunder outside. He moved toward her, slowly, carefully, like a man approaching a lioness in the wild. She didn't flinch, didn't back away. She turned to face him, storm meeting storm. I've done things for you that no one else would, he hissed. Things that damn me to hell. And still, I give you everything. You gave me your version of love, Eden said, stepping closer, her voice unwavering. Twisted, possessive, conditional. And I let you. I let you bury me in your obsession because I thought maybe, just maybe, it came from a place of truth. Lucien's chest rose and fell with barely contained fury, not at her, but at himself. He hated this, hated how she'd clawed into the heart he thought he no longer had, how she defied him, not with violence or vengeance, but with truth, with pain, with raw, bleeding honesty. I'm not like other men, he said. I know. You can't fix me. I never wanted to. He looked at her then, really looked, and what he saw wasn't a girl in chains. It was a woman forged in fire, one who'd survived his darkness, who'd bent but never broken. And for the first time, Lucien wondered what she might become if he simply let go. You're not leaving, he said quietly. No, Eden admitted, but not because you won. I'm staying because I'm not done burning down what you built. Lucien's mouth twitched at the edge, not quite a smile, but something reverent. Burn it down then, he whispered. Just don't leave me in the ashes. She reached for him, surprising them both. Her fingers curled around his wrist, dragging his hand to her chest, over the place where her heart thundered defiantly. If you want me, she said, you fight for me. Not with guns, not with chains, but with truth. Show me who you are when no one's watching. Show me the man under the monster. Lucien trembled beneath her touch. Then, slowly, he nodded. I will. Lightning cracked again. The rain pounded harder. But inside that room, inside their storm, a fragile truce formed. And though it was wrapped in fire and fury, it was real. Chapter 13. The storm outside had quieted, but inside his penthouse the storm still raged, between them. Aaron Black stood by the wide glass wall, his profile cut sharp by the city lights. The empire had built from nothing glittered below, yet he felt no triumph. Not anymore. Behind him, Arya paced slowly. Her eyes were red-rimmed but fierce, no longer the scared woman who had entered his world under chains and commands. You asked me to stay, she said softly, her voice barely rising over the hum of the city. But you never told me how to live in a cage that looks like a palace. His jaw clenched. It was never a cage. You bought me, Aaron. Her words stung like acid. You owned me. He turned, the full weight of his gaze slamming into hers. I saved you. Then why does it feel like I died in the process? She whispered. There was silence. Aaron took a slow step toward her, and then another. His voice was deep and gravelly, pained. I've broken everything I ever touched, Aya. You were light, and I tried to own it, not knowing it would burn me. She didn't move. I've done terrible things, he continued. Used my money, power, and name to control what I was afraid to lose. You were the only thing that made me feel alive. And I didn't know how to love without possession. She looked up at him, her throat tight. So what now? He reached into his coat pocket and pulled out a folded piece of paper. A deed, he said quietly, to your name. Everything, the apartment, the accounts, the identity I gave you. It's yours now. Not mine, not tied to me. You can leave, and I won't stop you. Her hand trembled as she took it. Freedom, real freedom, but her chest hurt with it. Tears gathered in her eyes again, hot and confusing. Why now? Because I want to deserve you, he said, voice cracking for the first time. even if I never get to hold you again." She turned away for a moment, the silence between them unbearable. And then she did something Aaron hadn't expected. She tore the deed in half. "Arya, no one owns me anymore," she said firmly, stepping toward him. "But I choose to stay, if you let me." Aaron's breath left him in a rush. His hands shook. "I don't know how to love gently," he said, voice hoarse. "But I'll learn, for you." She reached for his hand, and let's learn together. 2 years later, Aaron Black was still feared in the world of power, ruthless in business, calculated in everything. Except her. He was gentle with Arya, fiercely devoted. The man who once claimed her as a possession now worshipped her as his equal. Their love wasn't perfect. It had scars, deep ones. But it was real. Arya stood by the window now, the same one where he once watched the city with lonely eyes. This time, she was holding his hand. Their daughter babbled in her arms. "I still remember the first time I saw you," she murmured. "And I remember thinking I owned you," Aaron whispered back. "But you were the one who owned me." She smiled, kissing his cheek. "We survived the darkness and built our light." As the city moved beneath them, Arya and Aaron stood in silence. No more cages, no more pain. Only love. Fierce, earned, and everlasting. The end.
Thank you so much for being part of this emotional journey. I truly appreciate each and every one of you. Your support, your love, your time. It means everything. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like, subscribe, and drop your thoughts in the comments. I read every single one. As always, see you in the next one. Love, Maria.